Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us today. Cuba is on the front lines of climate change, surrounded by rising seas, extreme droughts, and even bigger storms. And that all impacts your agriculture, your infrastructure, and the way of life for people in your country. What have you personally experienced over the years, and how are you trying to use that voice at the United Nations?
Well, Cuba has a tradition as a developing country, trying to concentrate its efforts to unite the developing countries in the confronting climate change. In the early 90s, when we experienced the historical Earth Summit in Brazil, in Rio, our historic leader, Fidel Castro, he made an historical statement calling the attention about the situation of the rising of the sea level, the global warming, and the necessity to dedicate more efforts and more resources to deal with the issue of climate change. Because Cuba is a small island developing state, we have risks, we are vulnerables, and we understand very well the gravity and the importance of the issue of climate change. And we have used our condition of chairmanship of G77 this year to try to put the climate issue on the first priority in the agenda of the G77 plus China. Our president is now arriving to the United Arab Emirates to participate in the COP28, and we will convey a summit of leaders of the G77 plus China within the COP28 on December the 2nd, and we will raise this issue, the need to unite our forces to ask the developed world to dedicate efforts, financial resources to combat climate change, for example, to allocate resources in the finance, climate finance, to operationalize the loss and damage fund, to dedicate efforts to also to deal with the mitigation and adaptation. All of these issues are paramount importance for the developing world, especially for small island developing states like the Caribbean, like the Pacific Island.
G77 represents 80% of the world's population. What will be the president's biggest message at COP28?
I think that the biggest message would be it is important to put the climate change in the first priority in the international agenda, and for that we must discuss other important issues, like, for example, the existing world economic order, the necessity to talk about debt relief, the necessity to reform the international financial institutions, the necessity to grant the flows of resources to the combat climate change. Also, we have to, if we want to get into the Agenda 2030 and the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, we have to put the climate change as one of the priorities, because if not, we're not going to have sustainable development. We're not going to achieve the 2030 agenda if we don't achieve the climate goals.
We already know that 2023 is expected to be the hottest on record. So let's go to your country for a moment. What is Cuba hoping to accomplish by 2030?
Well, first of all, Cuba is, in terms of global emissions, we contribute only with 0.2% of the global emissions, but we have a state plan to confront with climate change. The name is a life task, and it is a research until 2100 of all the impact of the climate change in our island, in our ecosystem, in our nature, in our social and economic development. And also, it's not only a diagnosis, but it's a plan of measures and actions that we should take to deal with the climate change. Our parliament is about to pass an environmental law. We have also a governmental plan to diminish the participation of the fossil energy in our energy matrix. So we are now at about 5% of our generation of power of energy is based on renewable energy. So we have a plan to increase until 2030 to 24%. That is a very ambitious plan, but we have the possibility and the natural conditions, especially related to wind energy and also related to solar energy. We have to introduce also the issue of climate change in the universities, in the schools. We have to do more with our children, our young generation, that they understand the necessity to fight for the preservation of nature, and to give also priority to the issues of climate change, of global warming. We have, for example, desertification. It's a great problem in the east part of the country. We have, for example, the intrusion of salt water in the soil that diminish the productivity of our soils for the agriculture. We have hurricanes in the Caribbean. So you witness that the hurricanes are stronger every year, and they are very often because, the fuel for the hurricanes is warm water. And with the increase of the global temperature, with a small developing island, we suffered this impact. So that's why Cuba also, one of the priorities is to develop a strong civil defense. When there is a hurricane, well, there is a whole system, the civil defense, evacuating people, allocating people, resources, animals, to avoid great losses by a hurricane. We have also transferred this experience to our neighbors in the Caribbean. We have also helped our neighbors to improve their capacities in facing with these important issues as a whole.
Ambassador Penalver Portel, thank you so much for your time.
It's been a pleasure.